So, welcome to a new episode of So What's Your Story? I'm Jam Gamble, and my guest is all the way in Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. And
Yeah.
like in the city of Saskatchewan? Or like
No, and just outside of Saskatoon.
outside of Saskatoon. So if the connection is choppy, it's because I don't know if Wi-Fi gets there.
It's pretty far out.
It's pretty far out. So this is Callista. Callista and I went to high school, I don't know how many years ago, like 12 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it seems that a lot has changed in 12 years. I am a mom myself to two birds and now a kitten. And Callista's a mom to how many?
Seven kids.
Seven, but it could be anywhere between five and like.
Well, right now it's between four. I have four bio kids, and then I can have three more foster placements, but we're also open for one more for emergencies.
So this is why I'm allowing Callista to share her story, because I think prior to reading your Facebook post, I didn't know much about foster care. The most I know about foster care is that, people have a lot of issues with it in the system and how it works. A lot of mistreatment of children, unfortunately. If kids go from home to home, usually their things are in a garbage bag. It's not even like in a proper suitcase. So now, fortunately, there's a lot of initiatives where you could donate old suitcases so these children could have a bit of dignity when they go from home to home. And that's about it. Only up until this year am I actually teaching children in foster care that I'm getting a little bit more of an understanding. But I think it's been through your Facebook post that you've humanized it a bit, if that makes sense, right? Like, it's no longer speculation. It's like you're sharing the highs and the lows. And I've just been so fascinated and curious as to how one person can manage four of their own and then have a heart big enough to say, you know what, let's bring more in. So please share your story.
Well, we've been fostering for I guess it's been a year now, like just over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, we've had 5 babies come through. 3 of them are still with us right now, and 2 of them are not. And I don't like to talk about that part too much because it's hard, the tears. But so we've got the 3 with us right now, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, really.
No, that's not it. That is not that is like the paperback of the book version or something. Like, what? Okay, usually, again, let's go over the misconceptions or the stereotypes of foster care. Usually when you think of foster care, you think of like middle-aged white families who are unable to conceive, or you think group home with behavioral children, and people are just doing it for the money. The more kids they have, the more money they get. That's about it. I think it's safe to say you are able to conceive. You have 4. You have 4.
Yeah.
You have a few times. What inspired you to like say let's get into foster care?
I don't have a big moment where I was like, oh my gosh, let's do this.
Yeah.
My parents are Salvation Army officers, and they work in a pretty high needs area of Toronto. And when my husband went away to basic training, I spent 7 months living with my parents with my kids. And I volunteered at their church, and I sort of spent some time with some of the people who have had their kids apprehended by the system. And so you hear their stories and you get to know them as a people. And all of a sudden, these people that it's so easy for us to be like, they're monsters, like how could anyone do that to your kids? You sort of start to hear their side of the story and how different that is and how much they spend so much time worrying about their children who are in foster homes that they don't know anything about. And I said to my husband, we could be foster parents and we could make it a more positive experience for these birth families, because how are they going to get their kids back if they're in a place where they're spending all their energy and their time worrying about their children? We could be the type of foster home where we work with them so that they can not worry about their own kids and worry about themselves, and then they get better. We got into this so that we could help families get back together. That's our goal. And so we moved to Saskatchewan, and we happened to have an extra bedroom. And I was like, I'm done having babies, but like I've done that and I'm done. But I
Was this
love
after number 4, or was this like after?
number 4. She was like 18 months old when we started the process, maybe a little older.
Mhm.
And so, I said, we have this extra room. I don't want to have any more of your babies. Sorry, honey. But I would love to still have babies in the home. And there's a huge need here in Saskatchewan and actually in Canada in general. And so I said, let's do this. And my husband is a very patient man who goes along with all my crazy ideas. And he was like, yeah, okay, let's do this, which, I was impressed. I thought I'd have to argue a little bit, but he was all down for it. And so that's how it happened.
I can't even call it a crazy idea.
Well,
I have a lot of crazy ideas. Oh, there's a stray cat in our backyard. Let's keep it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy idea. Versus, oh my goodness, there's a child who's in crisis and needs to start the first couple months of their life experiencing what love is.
Right.
Let's
fair.
Let's go with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a little bit more different. But again, like, I've been your Facebook posts again. I think honestly, and I'm not just saying this, your Facebook posts are, if not the most relevant and important posts on Facebook, because everyone else's Facebook posts are, oh, this is me showing off this is my life, or this is me sending some like subliminal message to someone I have beef with. I hope you read this. And then you share your stories of foster care, and I'm like, and you write essays, and normally I don't read essays. I'm not down with reading essays, but I love reading your essays because I'm like, holy awareness. So if you can remember, tell me about, and say as much as you want, about the first child you brought in.
Oh gosh.
I know. I don't know if it's the one I'm thinking of, but just
be prepared for some tears. Oh gosh.
It's okay.
Like, obviously I'm not allowed to share any specific identifying information. But we had a little girl who was our very first foster daughter. And she was 2 months old when she was dropped off at our home. Yeah. And she was here for 4 months. Yeah, 4 months. Yeah. And she had my heart from the very moment she was dropped off. Like, you have those moments that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And that's just one of those moments. Like, it was winter, so taking the blanket off of her car seat, and she was awake and just like looked up at me with these big brown eyes and like big smile. And from that moment, I was all in with her.
Yeah.
And all my kids, we still talk about her a lot and miss her like crazy. And when she left, that broke me. Like, that was.
I think I remember that Facebook post. I remember going, and you know what's funny? I tell people that story all the time. I go, listen, she's not getting like this big kid who's like, screw you, I'm going back home. She's getting this. She's getting babies who don't even have quite picked up the scent of their own mother, and then they're coming to her, and then she gave one back, and I was broken. I was broken reading that because I can't even, like, here I am stressing about my kitten here being chipped. Like, I hope no one has the chip because I'm not giving it back. And you have a little human. You have a life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. That, I could only imagine how hard that was. But also rewarding, because here's the beauty though. When I read your posts, you're not selfish in the slightest bit. You're always so happy to return these children back to their parents and to see their parents in a better place, and like that's just so magical in itself, right?
It's hard because where we live and the issues that are kind of prevalent here, I don't think most kids reunify with their parents. That's just not the reality here. So when we have had the opportunity to be a part of that is just like, I can't even describe what that's like the joy of watching a mom and a dad welcome their child into their home. Finally, something that they've worked so hard and they fought so hard to things that I'll never understand. Like, I've never really struggled. I was born in an upper class white family. I don't know struggles, you know what I mean? So I watch these people fight battles that I know nothing about. and I watch them move mountains for these kids. And then when they bring them home, like it is just like you can feel that in the air. And I can ride that high for a really long time. But the reality is that doesn't happen all the time. And so when they get moved, but they don't move home, those are really difficult for me. Because
so they go to another foster family?
Not usually. That's not like, they are really trying to avoid moving kids now because we realize what that does to kids. But there are times when, they move to a kinship placement. So if they find a relative that is willing and able to care for that child, then they'll move them to a kinship placement. And that's supposed to be more of a permanent option if reunification is not happen. The other thing is they can be moved to an adoptive home if it's gone that direction.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. I'm processing this all myself while interviewing you at the same time. I remember seeing you'd have posts saying, like emergency, who has an extra crib? Or, how has your community been? Like your friends, your family, for goodness sakes. Like how's everyone been to this?
We have been incredibly lucky. Like if you follow my Instagram, you'll see one of the big themes for me is that foster care is not something you do on your own. We chose to do this, but we never asked our family and friends, but without them, we wouldn't be able to do it. I get a call at 9:30 in the morning saying, hey, we're bringing a baby. We'll be there at 11.
Wow.
and I don't have anything for this baby because I wasn't expecting that to happen. So I have the type of community where I can put a post out on Facebook saying like, listen, we're getting hypothetical baby boy, 11 months old. This is what I need. And people will show up at my door. We had one of our little girls who did go home. Her parents were collecting books for her because they wanted to have a bookshelf.
I remember that. Oh,
I had people sending books from, I had friends in the States sending books, I was overwhelmed with how much stuff, right?
I remember that. You're like, I want to get her a shelf, and the mom's so proud. Oh, I remember that. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
and that's just one instance. My mom sends Valentine's Day cards every year to my kids in the mail. And so she sends them to all of our kids, and our friends in the community brought Christmas gifts for them. These kids are just so loved by our whole community. And I think what's really cool about that is that we never asked them. We chose to be a part of this, but they didn't choose to be brought in. But they, it doesn't faze them. They'll see me one day and I have 5 kids, and the next day I have 7, and they're like, all right, they just roll with it. We're pretty lucky.
It's like, it really goes back to that original saying, it takes a community.
Absolutely.
To raise a child.
Yeah, a foster care. Yeah, it really, really does. There have been times where Ryan has left for work and we've had 5 kids, and he's come home from work and we've had kids. And, I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. Got it covered. Friends brought dinner. It's all, and he's like, oh, all right, cool.
I would love to see that in action. He's coming home. Hi, honey. This is Joseph.
And I do. I'll send him a picture. I'm like, you should come home soon because I got this kid you should meet.
That is wow. Okay, let's talk about your kids, little humanitarians in the making. Let's just let's talk about your kids.
I have 4, and they're between 10 and 4 years old. And they're pretty interesting. When we first did it, so you go through your home study before you get approved to be foster parents, and they interview your kids, which is the most terrifying thing I have ever done because I don't know what they're gonna say.
Do you want a sibling? No.
Oh, there was a moment when they asked my son, how do you feel? And he's like, I want to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was dying. And they're like, well, why don't you want to do foster care? He's like, I don't want to share my Lego with a girl. And I was like, okay, that's fantastic. So yeah. But now that we're in it, my kids adore these babies and adore these kids. Oh, I hear.
It's okay.
My kids adore them. It is really difficult when the kids leave. It's really hard on them. But my kids, we've been very clear right from the beginning, you know, that these kids are not here forever. They're here because they need us right now and their family needs us right now.
How do you even have that conversation? Like, I've worked in kindergarten. I've had the kiddie talks about, like, you know, my grandma died and what's death and is Santa real and all, you know, where do babies come from? I've had those conversations and I have found that difficult. How do you explain to a child this little human that you're playing with and loving is not here to stay, you know? Like,
I mean, it is a difficult conversation, but we're as honest as we can be with our kids while still keeping it age appropriate and protecting the privacy of the families. So, you know, we say, I mean, it's like babysitting long term, you know, in the sense that, you know, their parents need some time to take care of themselves so that they can be the best mom and dad that they can be. So we're stepping in and we're loving these babies in the meantime. Yeah. And what's made it easier for us is that we make it a goal to have a relationship with those birth families. And so my kids get to know the parents. And when that happens, it's easier to give that kid back because we all understand that that baby belongs with their mom and dad. You know, so we had one of our baby's moms here with us for Christmas. And you know, my kids get to see her with her son and they see how much they love and adore their son and they understand that, you know, he belongs with her. You can see it, you know, and so I think that's really helped is that they get to know the parents, you know.
This is like real life. This is us.
yeah, sometimes. Yeah, really
like is. I cry every week. Truth be told, I am holding back a bucket of tears right now for this entire conversation.
I have that effect on people,
but
actually.
It's like real life. This is us. I'm like, oh my God, this is us. Like in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, Canadian version.
Like CBC needs to do like a whole special on you. I remember there was, again, and going back to your Facebook post, there was the picture of Halloween, and I was just done. I was like, look at the little burger. And then what I love is that, yes, you put like a little sticker on their face to, you know, for privacy and to keep that dignity in place for those families too. But I also love how you just, like, you take this on. Like, this is family. This is our child. This is your Halloween costume. And then those parents could get those pictures back and see their child's first Halloween or...
Yeah. Well, we do life books, like that's a requirement in our province, which I love. So these kids have a book and it follows them wherever they go. And it's got photos, you know, I keep photos, I keep birthday cards, I keep anything, you know, that I think they might want to look back on. Because these kids a lot of times won't know their story unless someone's written it for them, you know, and we see that having that sense of identity is so important as you become older, you know, and a lot of kids in foster care don't have that because, you know, they've been moved around a lot or there's trauma and memories affected. And so they don't know their story. And, you know, my kids love looking at their newborn photos and they love hearing stories about when they were a baby or when they were a toddler and they said funny things. So we make sure to keep a record of that so that wherever they do end up, they have that so that they'll know, you know, this is who they are, this is where they came from. And know their life wasn't perfect and it wasn't ideal, but there were people there that loved them, you know. So
again, going back to the misconceptions of foster care, often when you watch TV shows, like let's look at the episode, I don't know if you even watch This Is Us, but there was that one episode of foster care and the child, they thought it was going to be as easy as pick a baby, bring the baby home, it's going to be a newborn, everything's going to be hunky-dory, but instead they were faced with a teenager who came with a lot of trauma. For people who are watching and who that's all they know about foster care, what do you say to that about these children who, yes, they might come with a story, but how do you see past that and love this child?
Well, every child that's in foster care comes with trauma. Every single one. It doesn't matter if they're a newborn or a 16-year-old being taken from your family, regardless of what that family environment looks like. It's traumatic for these kids, you know, and we've had kids straight from the hospital and they come with their own traumas too, you know, and there are some traumas that don't show up in the beginning, they show up later. You don't know what you're going to get. And if you're hoping for a perfect child, then you probably shouldn't be having kids anyways, right?
Yeah.
But trauma it happens and it's it's difficult. It's harder with some than others, but I don't even know, because truthfully we have one that we've really struggled with because the trauma has just shown up in behaviors that are really hard to deal with. But there's a saying that kids who need love the most will ask for it in the most unloving ways, and that's true. Right? They don't know how to express their grief or their anger or their bitterness, and these kids have experienced things in their first 2 years of life that in 30 years I haven't experienced. Some of these kids are born addicted to heroin, or they were exposed to alcohol in the womb, or there's so many reasons that these kids come into care, and I don't think I would be able to verbalize my feelings about that, and they're 2 years old, so of course they can't verbalize that. So they do have behaviors that are challenging, but when you sit back and you think about everything that they've been through, it's so understandable, and then it's a little easier sometimes to deal with it when you think about it that way.
So again, now going back to, if anyone's watching, like, why should people consider foster care?
Why wouldn't you consider foster care?
Check in, mate. Nice play.
No, really, the biggest thing that we hear people say when they find out that we're foster parents, the biggest thing, and I know that they come from a good place, but it kind of like irks me a little bit, because they'll be like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I'd get too attached. And I'm like, oh, well, that's weird, because I'm not at all attached to these babies. Like, take them and leave them. It's just kind of such a silly thing for people to say, because it's like, of course you get attached. Of course. Like, how could you not?
How do you not? How do you not?
If you're attached, you're doing your job, because you're teaching these kids that they are worth being loved at any cost. They see that I was willing to love them, even though I know that my heart would be broken. Like, when every time that phone rings and I say yes, I know what that means. And I'm teaching them that they have worth and they have value, and they are so loved no matter what has happened to them and what will happen to them, and they deserve that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is,
no, go on.
we have a support system. I have my husband, I have my kids, I have my parents, I have so many people that I can go to when my heart is broken. I have friends who bring me cake and listen to me cry when my baby leaves. And so, it hurts when they leave, but we have a support system. These kids, they don't have that, and so I feel like as a grown-up, we should be willing to take a little bit of that pain if it means we can take some of it away from a child. Because the reality is, there are kids spending Christmas in hotel rooms. There are kids sitting in a social worker's office while that social worker calls down the list trying to find them a home. There are babies spending their first 2 months of life in a group home. So they don't have parents. They have rotating 12-hour shifts of people caring for them. That's not okay. Like, there's no way that should be happening.
They didn't sign up for that. They didn't sign up for that.
No, absolutely not. And there are so many capable, loving families that if we all just took one child, there wouldn't be enough children to go around. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Whereas right now, they're in such a dire need of foster parents that we've got 3 when we were only supposed to have 1, and there are kids, like I said, that's living in hotel rooms right now because there's nowhere else for them to go.
You're humanizing it. You're humanizing it. You're bringing the emotion into it. And it's true. Like, of course you're going to get attached. It's like, for 17 years, I've been in the field of working with children who have disabilities, right? Show me a year where at the end of summer camp, at the end of a school year, I'm not sobbing on the last day of school. I am happy as all can be that it's the last day of school. But I am also crushed at the same time because I'm spending 35 hours a week with these kids. I'm with them with their fevers. I'm with them when they get bullied. I'm with when people say mean things in the hallway. I become that human sponge, right? That absorbs all that. And I remember someone said something similar to me. They asked me, what would you do if you gave birth to a child with a disability? And Well, I've been caring for other people's kids for the past 15 years, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to take care of mine. Like, I don't know, like, how am I not going to be able to take care of my own child after raising other people's or helping other people's children? And people have to be cautious of how you respond or the things you say to people, because we get really defensive.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's like that, you're a mom, so you could say it, but you feel it. Like, I feel like I go red when people
Yeah.
say
Oh yeah.
offensive things or